Okay, the race is on. We don't got so much time. I'm in a little bit of a hurry today, and as usual, we at Yankee T News have all kinds of things going on in the background, which forces me once again to be doing it from studio number 3. Okay, so it is Monday, the 2nd of February, the year of our Lord 2026, and it's me, Kurt Ranowski from Yankee T News, bringing you this week's take on what is happening in the world. Oh my God, what a mess. What a mess. Let me just start with my famous op-ed, and that is that the protests that we have seen happening over here, and then the fraud, what we'll call the Somali fraud, but it covers more than Somalis, is happening over here. And we would not normally put them together. Maybe they belong together. But they do have one thing in common, and that would be, I'm going to say it, the Democrats. You have liberals who are pushing these protests, people who are funding it, who are not what you would call conservative in their point of view, and all the fraud, what we'll call the Somali fraud, touches on activities that clearly pertain to Democrats. So when you have someone like the governor of Minnesota, eminently a liberal, eminently a communist China-loving liberal, doing everything he can to downplay this, you got to think there is a connection somewhere, right? Okay, so all of this said, I think what we're looking at is a well-organized conspiracy to mess up the country as best they can. You know, it's the twin pillars of chaos, which are fraud and violence, are being worked one against the other as we see around the country. Now, the problem is that fraud is on its back foot right now. Too many things have been revealed, and they are going to come out, and you're going to see, well, maybe we're going to finally see some real perp walks as a result, because some of the information is just too obvious. It's the best way I could say it. Now, the other part of this, though, is that I don't know, again, to me, it's a slow drip. And by the way, I just want to take this opportunity. You know, Pam Bondi, I've been very critical of you, and for the most part, I do remain critical. But I want to say something very important to you. Nothing, and I mean nothing, will give me greater satisfaction than having to apologize to you. I would love to apologize to you, but earning that apology, as you may imagine, requires producing what we call real results. Now, the FBI raid on the Fulton County election facility is a step in the right direction. We still don't know what's going to come out of it. That Tulsi Gabbard was there, eyes on, and she was reporting directly to President Trump what she was seeing, most likely. I will take all as a good sign. But for the most part, though, we still don't see people being nailed down. Yes, I know we have the 3 grand juries impaneled. Yes, progress is being made on the Russia hoax case, and yes, we would have to start there. But again, we think more about the incredible extent of the fraud that was committed. So much so, by the way, I came up with a little sign for this to really put this into perspective. Okay. That's right. Complex election fraud. So it's not just election fraud. It's what is done to carry this out. And we are finding, I don't know, at the end of the day, we're probably talking about dozens of techniques, methods, protocols, procedures that were done. And just because I'm a little bit of a computer nerd, I can't help but mention it since I brought it up. The talk about what are called DLL files, so dynamic linked library files. Okay, for all you C programmers out there, of course, we know that refers to header files as well. It's a form, it could be arguably, I know we'll have a debate, but arguably a form of header files. So these files are handy-dandy referenced when you have to pull them for certain apps within a larger application or larger program. All this said, the argument is, as articulated by Peter Byrne, that there are somewhere in the vicinity of 500 to 1,000 alterations that were found in these DLL files, wait for it, after certification. After certification. So that's called fraud. And yeah, so who's gonna adjudicate that, and how does that end up? And of course, you know, you already have the liberals asking, well, gee, what do we do if it is election fraud? We're gonna what? Do the election over again? President Trump technically in the third term? What's it gonna be? Well, of course they don't know because they didn't want to think about it. Now, boys, you get to think about it. All right. Well, I'm jumping on because I've only got so much time here. Okay. So I did mention the raid on the facility, the Fulton County election facility, and we should be hearing more about that. I'm just mentioning it. I would love to drill down on it. But there's also a series of key points that I want to get through here for you. Overlooked, people who are not paying attention, well, it should be, was a recent Supreme Court ruling basically saying that it's okay for President Trump to engage in mass deportations. Well, what a shock, you know. Didn't Obama do it, supposedly? Didn't Eisenhower do it? Didn't other presidents send out lots of illegal aliens in this country? We've had border issues for decades. I mean, generations. So the idea of mass deportation would certainly be a part of managing the situation. So now you've had to have the Supreme Court state the obvious in a ruling, a 5-4 ruling, unfortunately, that, yeah, you can go ahead and do it. So what's in the news? A report that the Department of Homeland Security is renting out warehouses. Warehouses? Well, that doesn't sound very good. Well, it doesn't sound very good because that means a lot of illegal aliens are going to be in a lot of warehouses. Something to think about. So the general sense is that given the scale of the problem, given that we allowed Biden to let people in unfettered for 4 years, leading to, what, at least 10 to 15 million in that period of time, plus those that came before. And if we are now making the decision to finally get these illegals out of our country, yes. And, you know, as another side note, yes, we shouldn't be surprised that as a number of illegals are removed from the country, we should see things like rental rates go down. We shouldn't be surprised to find that there's more affordable housing available as a result. I don't know. When do people start to put two and two together here? I don't know. Anyway, the other big thing was last week we had the 30% drop in the gold price. And, the other precious metals, silver had a big drop. Or was it silver had the 30% drop? I got to go back and check. But the point is, both of them crashed at the same time, presumably on the announcement that President Trump was going to appoint Mr. Warsh, as the next head of the Federal Reserve. Now, why would that cause such a crash in the market? What would he do that would devalue precious metals? We would like to have an explanation. But anyway, here as of Monday afternoon, gold and silver prices are making a recovery, but how much? Is it a dead cat bounce? We don't know yet. So stay tuned on that one. Yes. Oh, another thing that people have not been paying attention to, apparently there's been a growing number of arrests of Democrats at local levels of government. So various boards, mayors, and others. So to me, this is like the first layer or first level, and then it's just going to go up from there. Because what we're finding, okay, is that the fraud that was committed, what we're generically calling the Somali fraud, was widespread. It was all throughout the nation. Okay, it started with daycare centers, but then we talk about home health care, then what's the other thing? Transportation and food service. That's all I can talk about right now, but I'm sure there's more. It's been this pattern that's repeated over and over again to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. Could we even be looking at $100 billion of fraud around the nation? Maybe, if you include California. We're going to find out. But it is disgusting. We should all be upset. In fact, we should all be writing our senators and representatives a letter, especially those liberal ones like mine, Jim Hines. I haven't talked to him in a while. Maybe he needs to hear from me. Just an idea. Okay, what else would I like to hit on here? There's a lot, but again, I'm kind of running out of time. Bear with me here. We've got precious metals. Yeah, the search for the organizers. So right now we've got three names that are being thrown around. George Soros, Neville Roy Singham, who's still hiding out in communist China. How convenient. And what's that other guy? Reid Hoffman. Now, Reid's interesting because apparently he is hooked up with Jeffrey Epstein. We'll get to Jeffrey too, don't worry. Nonetheless, it would appear that these people are the ones that really need to be brought to task for what they appear to have done. Now, we're left with the impression from Kash Patel that they've started, for example, to search through the Signal chat with the 300 names in there. They've supposedly been coordinating and communicating with each other, especially with the protests in Minneapolis. We'll hopefully learn more there. But yes, as that's been going on, we've seen these protests go nationwide. But my question is, how many of those who are in Minneapolis went to the other cities? Hopefully we'll find out. And this is another opinionated moment where I may editorialize. I continue to be appalled at how we are treating these people with kid gloves. All right? We need to stop treating them with kid gloves. They have vile, evil intentions. All right? And speaking of vile, evil intentions, I just need to mention that rather embarrassing moment that President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico just had. So apparently she was called out by a reporter on this book that just came out, which I've got a review called The Invisible Coup by Peter Schweitzer. Yeah, so in the book he's making the claim that there is this thing called the Reconquista movement that the Mexican government's quietly been supporting in conjunction with the drug cartels. Now, since this was brought up, she's denied it. But the problem is that the Reconquista movement is real, and you have other officials in Mexico, highly placed officials, who have said, yeah, that's what we're doing. So, okay, what are you going to do about it? That's what I want to know. And it's just amazing. So we're, games being played by Mexico, games being played by the communist Chinese, games being played by the Russians, games being played by the Israelis. It's just astonishing how many people want to get a pound of flesh out of the United States. Just, wow. Anyway, moving on, because we're running out of time here. So yes, I'm in Portland, Los Angeles, I think, wasn't it Tucson was another one? And then you had the Seattle mayor saying that we're going to arrest people, which you can't do because that's violating federal law. I'm sorry, arresting ICE agents. Yeah, Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, a socialist. Yeah, we need to deal with her too. All right, let me just shift for the moment. It's funny because we've had these domestic things blowing up in our face, so we haven't really been paying attention very much to what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. But, just because you don't see much progress doesn't mean that much is not happening. I would say the single most important item that I want to bring to your attention was the claim of an edict, or I guess the Russian equivalent of an executive order put forth by Putin calling for 20 million men. I think that's between the ages of 18 and, I want to say 70, but I could have it wrong. And they're supposed to sign up, just like we had in the United States. If you remember, there is the Selective Service, which is still around. That's better known as the draft board. And it is when you turn the age of 18, you're supposed to go to the post office or fill out a card, and it gets put into the system. It used to be just men. Now it's men and women in the United States, I believe. And just now, Russia has decided to institute a similar system. All right, well, can we just draw the obvious inference from something like that? Putin ain't quitting. No, he's going to keep dipping deeper and deeper into whatever manpower he has in order to keep up this fight. So that said, I just need to offer another general observation. If you go back and you look at the battle between Iran and Iraq that went on for many years, you had a very large country, Iran, and a very small, relatively small country, Iraq, fighting each other. The large country used manpower, okay, waves of soldiers running across the desert sand to attack Iraq. In the meantime, Iraq had to invest heavily in technology to compensate for their lack of manpower. Does this sound familiar? That's right. You're going to find the same thing going on with Russia. So the part that I don't understand is that historically Russia has shown some capacity for innovation, especially with military equipment, but their reputation's been suffering lately. Okay, that's okay. Actually, it's not okay, but there they are. And it's just amazing. It's amazing how Ukraine is out innovating Russia on a lot of different fronts. So air drones, sea drones, okay, and we're going to hear about air defense systems, missile technology, and the integration of AI into their operations. Yeah, I don't know. One person pointed out that historically, as a part of the Soviet Union, Ukraine was the brain trust, if you will, for the Soviet Union, that the Russians themselves were not that innovative. And I don't know, it's, if you look at them culturally and historically, there might be some places to point to that. But I'm still surprised at the degree to which Ukraine has been able to out-innovate the Russians. And we're going to see more of it, so on that, stay tuned. Meantime, Iran. Oh my God, Iran. What am I going to say about Iran? Let's see, is there something I had for Iran here? I don't know. Here, let's go with this one. Brilliant misinformation. They've tried to shut down the internet. They have apparently had some success in shutting down Starlink, which is used as an alternative method of communication. But now the disturbing part is the report that the Iranian government, who has basically given Trump a blood-soaked middle finger, have brought in these militias from Arab countries, and they have there's no love lost with the Farsi-speaking population with these people, and this is why we believe that we're talking about many tens of thousands who have probably been killed in the last couple of weeks as a result. It's just crazy. And so President Trump's put in a tough spot because he warned the others, look, if you go back to killing your people, we're going to really have to do something. Yeah, well, that may be true, but, well, we haven't done it yet, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like. And I have faith that President Trump is approaching this in a way that is far more intelligent, far more circumspect, and definitely far more focused on getting real results than his predecessors. So we'll see if my faith in him is borne out. It's just my opinion. So the sense right now is that the people's rioting in the streets seems to have been pushed back, but not totally eliminated. And in the meantime, the U.S., in conjunction with Israel, is gearing up to do something. We just don't know what it is yet. But if I had to guess, there has to be some kind of an attack. I mean, how would you do it? I mean, try to put yourself in the position of these people and what they're trying to accomplish, okay? You see that there have been these flights. The Chinese apparently took out a lot of stuff. Was it 30 airplanes from China taking whatever? And then a number of airplanes that came and went from and to Moscow. But supposedly the mullah is still there. although it looks, I mean, we keep thinking it looks like he's getting ready to leave town, but we haven't seen it yet. So I just, yeah. Epstein. Epstein, oh my God, Epstein. Epstein, what's gonna do? Okay, so we got surprised. We said that the federal government had released 3 million pages of stuff about Epstein. And we aren't even talking about any of the videos from those hidden cameras on Epstein Island. We're just talking about paper, okay? 3 million pages of paper. Then we find out that the federal government's holding on to another 3 million. So this is quite the circus, ladies and gentlemen, I have to say. At first I was kind of skeptical, but now maybe something's going to come out of this. So what are one of the things? This is so crazy, I have to mention it. The allegation that Mamdani might be a love child of Epstein. I don't buy it for a second. There is no physical resemblance whatsoever between the two. But somebody had to put that out there. Boy, talk about creative misinformation. Sometimes that can also be, I have it right here, hold on. There you go, brilliant misinformation. Yes, yes. Okay, so then the other part though, and this becomes much more curious, and people start to look at it a little bit more closely, that would be the claim that that Epstein contracted with the KGB for honeypots. So this seems very curious, because this is the same person who, through Ghislaine, was recruiting underage girls and victimizing them by whatever means. So why would you need to go to the KGB and get honeypots if you're just getting girls off of the street? Doesn't make any sense. Unless there are different purposes. So that is my conjecture for the day. That's right. My conjecture for the day is that the underage girls were for, quote, mere blackmail, whereas the honeypots from Russia were supposed to be skilled at, shall we say, extracting information from their Johns. All right? So the ones from the KGB may have served another purpose, which then really, makes the picture about Epstein that much larger. But all I can say is let's just let that sit for now. I mean, there's so much more. Let me just get through these other things quickly, and we're going to have to call it a day here. The Chinese purge-o-matic machine. Yep, they did it again. There was a purge of generals just a few months ago, and now she had to do it again. All right? Rather than try to ponder on this, I'm just going to throw out this for your consideration. Somebody has floated the possibility that all these purges, which are supposedly anti-corruption, don't make me laugh, are in fact a way of putting off invading Taiwan. Let that sink in. By making yourself seem militarily constantly off balance, by having to shuffle military top-level personnel around, that would give you an excuse for not having to invade Taiwan. This becomes very curious if there is any truth to this at all. It certainly stands in stark contrast to when she publicly stated, "My purpose in life is to take Taiwan. If I die without having taken Taiwan, my life will have not been fulfilled." So he makes a statement like that and then pulls stunts like these. There might be another explanation, but I found that interesting when I came across that. $2 million, were rewarded to a detransitioner. So somebody who realized that she'd been had in this effort to turn her into a man and decided that she didn't want that. That is, of course, after she had her breast removed surgically. Bad timing. Has sued, and she's the first detransitioner to win, and her award was $2 million. There are a number of other detransitioners out there. Expect more lawsuits like that, okay? The other thing is that the Somali fraud, as I'm referring to it generically, is exploding. It's really exploding into all these different dimensions and areas and ways in which nobody would have thought possible. And I'm sorry, there is a common element here, the Democrats. Yeah, some Republicans may have benefited, but the vast majority of it, Democrat inspired. Everything from the nonprofits themselves to all this stuff. It's pathetic. Anyway, the point I would like to make is that the Department of Justice now has to set up a new division just to investigate fraud. That's it. That's all they're going to do. It's that bad. And then, let's see. Oh, yes, we are waiting for the Clinton contempt vote. Will they vote in the majority to hold the Clintons in contempt? I'll tell you, I'm skeptical, but I would love to be surprised. I would love to be surprised. Tina Peters. Now, here's another thought. The raid on the records in the Fulton County facility may inadvertently help Tina Peters. Now, we know that Governor Polis is supposedly reviewing her case along with some others, but, you know, there's a sense it's getting up there. It's starting to get a little hot for him. A little hot. And he wants to think that he'll curry favor by pardoning her. And, you know, you have to take into consideration that even if people argue that President Trump's pardon is not within a given jurisdiction, it still sets a tone, still creates sort of a trend, if you will. So we can hope, all right? And also the link, I put up the link there. There's an interview with Viva Fry, who's this lawyer in Canada, does great stuff. He really lays in on this. You got to watch it. It's really good, really good. Now, this is an odd one. Burkina Faso, we'll call it a no-name third world country in Africa. And they have decided they're going to dissolve all political parties. I find this curious because if you go back in our history, George Washington felt very strongly there should be no political parties. And here is this no-name country, Burkina Faso, which has taken to heart George Washington's attitude, and they've dissolved all political parties. Now, I don't know how they're going to run elections, but okay, we'll see what happens. Anyway, the thing I want to close with, which is of concern, is the food additive of the week of all things is caramel coloring. So I have the link there. You should go read it. And it's very clear that while you could think of caramel coloring as relatively safe, there is enough evidence to suggest maybe we should not be using it. You know, this becomes a question of what standard that you want to set. If carcinogenicity is your standard, okay, that's one thing. But let's talk, for example, more conjecture. Let's talk about biome impairment, all right? Not a medical concept I'm aware of, but let's just pretend for the moment that there is such a thing as biome impairment. Now you find foods that damage your biome. Should they be prohibited? Should they be banned? Probably, all right? But we haven't gotten to that point yet. But that's something to think about. Okay, so until next week, guys,